The marble floors of Trump Tower gleamed under the afternoon sun, reflecting the towering ambition that had built the empire within its walls. Every detail, from the polished brass railings to the oversized portraits of Trump himself, seemed to announce power and control. It was a place where deals were made, egos were stroked, and no one dared to challenge the man who owned it all. Donald Trump sat at the head of the conference table, his golden tie shining as brightly as his reputation. With a commanding presence and an air of self-assurance, he scanned the room like a lion surveying his territory. His team of advisors lined the walls, all silent, waiting for his signal. Trump thrived in moments like these, where the stakes were high and the odds were firmly in his favor. But today, something was different. Across the room, standing with a confidence that belied his age, was Alex Hart, a 10-year-old business prodigy who didn't look like he belonged. His suit, custom-made but slightly oversized, was a humorous reminder of his youth. Yet his sharp eyes and calm demeanor told another story. This was no ordinary child. The room buzzed with murmurs as Alex entered. "What's a kid doing here?" whispered one advisor. "This has to be a joke," muttered another. Yet, as Alex walked to his seat, the whispers turned to awkward silence. He moved with the ease of someone who had walked into countless boardrooms before. Trump leaned back in his chair, a bemused smile playing on his lips. "So, you're the one everyone's been talking about," he said, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Alex didn't flinch. "I guess I am," he replied, his tone as steady as his gaze. The exchange was brief but electric. Trump, a man known for dominating every conversation, was met with an unshakable presence from a child half his size. The story hadn't started here in this grand tower. It had begun in a quiet corner of Alex's bedroom, where stacks of books and a glowing laptop were the only witnesses to his genius. Alex wasn't just a bright kid, he was extraordinary. By the age of 8, he had read more books on business strategy than most adults could name. By 10, he had started Hart Enterprises, a tech startup that was already making waves. But it wasn't Alex's success that had brought him to Trump Tower, it was a chance encounter with one of Trump's businesses that had set everything in motion. It started as a small deal, one that most people wouldn't even notice. Trump's company had agreed to partner with a young tech firm on a pilot project, a standard arrangement. What no one realized was that the young firm was Alex's. At first, everything went smoothly. Trump's team barely paid attention to the details, assuming the project would be a quick win. But Alex noticed something they didn't: the deal's terms were far more beneficial to him than they had anticipated. As weeks passed, Alex quietly adjusted his strategy, positioning himself to gain more influence over the project. It wasn't long before people in Trump's circle began to notice. "Who's running this project?" one executive had asked, flipping through a report. "The numbers were too precise, the strategy too sharp." "Some kid," came the reply, accompanied by a chuckle. "His name's Alex Hart. Probably got lucky." But as the weeks went by, the tone shifted. Alex wasn't just lucky, he was smart, calculated, and fearless. Trump himself caught wind of the boy wonder and dismissed the chatter with a wave of his hand. "A 10-year-old. Please. Let's focus on the real players." That dismissal would soon come back to haunt him. Then came the moment that changed everything. Trump's team, eager to assert control, extended an invitation to Alex for a meeting at Trump Tower. It was meant to intimidate, a show of power designed to remind Alex who he was dealing with. Alex's response? He accepted without hesitation. The day of the meeting arrived, and Alex's entrance was nothing short of legendary. Escorted by his father, who looked more like an assistant than a parent, Alex stepped into the grand lobby of Trump Tower with a confidence that turned heads. "He's so young," whispered a receptionist, watching the boy walk past. "Yeah, but look at him," another replied. "He doesn't even look nervous." And he wasn't. As Alex stepped into the elevator and ascended to the top floor, he knew the odds were against him. Trump's team was seasoned, ruthless, and ready to dismiss him as a child playing dress-up. But Alex had something they didn't plan. Now, standing in the conference room, Alex was unfazed by the grandeur around him. The golden accents, the towering windows overlooking the city, the sheer scale of it all, none of it shook him. Trump, leaning back in his chair, studied the boy with a mix of amusement and curiosity. "You've got guts, kid," he said, breaking the silence. Alex nodded. "Guts are only useful if you've got the brains to match," he replied, his voice steady. The room tensed. Advisors exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or intervene. But Trump's smile grew wider. He loved a good challenge, and it seemed he had found one in the most unexpected place. What no one in the room knew, what even Trump hadn't realized yet, was that Alex wasn't just here to defend his position. He was here to win. The stakes had never been higher, and the battle was just beginning. The conference room of Trump Tower seemed almost alive, vibrating with the collective energy of power brokers who had gathered there for decades. The polished marble gleamed, the golden accents caught the afternoon sun, and the heavy glass table, wide enough to seat a dozen people, stood like a battleground awaiting its warriors. Donald Trump, larger than life in every sense, owned this space. His confidence filled the room even before he spoke. A man who had turned his name into a brand and his brand into a legacy, Trump thrived on dominance. This was his world, and every detail, from the opulent decor to the carefully placed photographs of his achievements, served as a reminder that he was at the top of the food chain. But today, something was different. Today, the world wasn't looking at him, it was looking at Alex Hart. The boy's tailored suit made him look like a miniature mogul, his posture was as straight as the skyline visible from the windows, and his expression carried a calm authority that unnerved even the most seasoned of Trump's advisors. To them, this moment felt surreal. Alex wasn't just out of place because of his age. He was out of place because he seemed entirely unfazed by the situation. Trump watched him closely, his smile sharp and calculating. The man had dealt with billionaires, politicians, and celebrities. But a 10-year-old? That was a first. And yet, as Alex stepped forward and took his seat at the far end of the table, Trump noticed something remarkable. This boy didn't flinch, hesitate, or even seem curious. Instead, he exuded the confidence of someone who had done this before. The journey that brought Alex to this room wasn't the kind of story you'd find in a glossy magazine or a viral video. It was quieter, more deliberate. Alex Hart wasn't born into wealth or privilege. His parents were middle-class professionals who valued hard work and education. From an early age, it was clear Alex was different. While other kids his age were playing video games or watching cartoons, Alex was devouring books on economics, business, and strategy. By the time he was 9, he had discovered his passion for problem solving. His first business idea was a neighborhood delivery service for small packages, hardly groundbreaking, but successful enough to catch the attention of local entrepreneurs. Encouraged by this early success, Alex began exploring the world of technology and innovation. He studied coding, devoured case studies of companies like Apple and Amazon, and learned the basics of negotiation from online videos. At 10, Alex launched Hart Enterprises, a tech startup focused on creating efficient logistics software. It wasn't just a hobby or a school project, it was a fully operational business with paying clients. While his classmates were worrying about homework, Alex was balancing contracts and client meetings. What made Alex exceptional wasn't just his intelligence, it was his ability to think several steps ahead. He saw patterns others missed, anticipated problems before they arose, and crafted solutions so elegantly simple that even seasoned professionals were left impressed. The story that led Alex to Trump Tower began innocently enough. Hart Enterprises had developed a groundbreaking logistics platform that caught the attention of one of Trump's companies. The software promised to optimize supply chains, cut costs, and increase efficiency, an irresistible proposition for any large corporation. When Trump's team reached out to discuss a potential partnership, Alex knew this was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. But he also knew he had to tread carefully. Trump's reputation as a tough negotiator preceded him. Stories of his shrewd tactics and relentless pursuit of the best deal were legendary. Alex prepared meticulously, spending weeks analyzing every detail of the proposed contract. By the time he signed, Alex had ensured the deal was far more favorable to him than anyone at Trump's company realized. It was a masterstroke, hidden in plain sight, and it set the stage for what was to come. As the partnership unfolded, Alex's software delivered results beyond expectations. Efficiency soared, costs plummeted, and Trump's team praised the project as a resounding success. But behind the scenes, whispers began to circulate. "Who's the genius behind this?" an executive asked during a meeting. "Some tech firm," another replied, flipping through a report. "Hart Enterprises. Never heard of them before this." The executive frowned. "Well, someone over there knows what they're doing." Soon, those whispers grew louder. The results were too good, the strategies too refined. It wasn't long before the name Alex Hart began to surface in conversations. At first, people assumed he was the head of the company, a young entrepreneur, perhaps in his 20s. When the truth came out, the reactions ranged from disbelief to laughter. "A 10-year-old? One advisor scoffed. "Come on. That's got to be a mistake." But as the weeks went by, the laughter faded. Reports of Alex's involvement became impossible to ignore. Trump himself heard about the boy and dismissed it with a wave of his hand. "A kid. Please. Let's focus on real business." But Alex wasn't just a name on a report anymore. His quiet genius was becoming a problem for Trump's team, and they decided to address it head-on. The invitation to Trump Tower was framed as a courtesy, a chance to discuss the project in person. But Alex knew better. This wasn't an invitation, it was a summons. Trump's team wanted to put him in his place, to remind him of the hierarchy in their world. Alex didn't hesitate. He accepted the invitation with a simple response: "I'll be there." The day of the meeting arrived with the kind of grandeur only Trump Tower could provide. Alex stepped into the lobby, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. His father walked beside him, silent but proud. The tower was a spectacle, its high ceilings and golden decor designed to impress. But Alex wasn't impressed. He had read about Trump Tower, seen pictures, and watched videos. He knew what to expect. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, Alex went over his plan in his mind. This wasn't just about holding his ground, it was about showing Donald Trump and his team that they had underestimated him. When the elevator doors opened, Alex stepped into the conference room without hesitation. The advisors lining the walls stared, some openly amused, others skeptical. A few exchanged whispers, their expressions shifting as they realized this wasn't a joke. "Is that the kid?" someone muttered. "Yeah," another replied. "Looks like he means business." And he did. Trump greeted Alex with his trademark confidence, leaning back in his chair and flashing a sharp smile. "So," he said, his voice echoing in the grand room, "you're the boy genius I've been hearing about." Alex met his gaze without blinking. "I'm Alex Hart," he replied. "It's nice to finally meet you, Mr. Trump." The room fell silent. For a moment, it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Trump chuckled, a low, amused sound that filled the space. "You've got guts, kid," he said, leaning forward. "Let's see if you've got the brains to match." Alex smiled faintly. "That's why I'm here," he said. This was just the beginning. The battle of wits, strategy, and egos was about to unfold, and Alex Hart was ready to take on the lion in his own den. Trump leaned back in his oversized chair, his golden tie glinting under the lights as he studied Alex Hart with a mixture of amusement and skepticism. The boy had barely reached the height of the table, yet he carried himself like someone used to commanding a room. It was unusual, almost unsettling. Alex remained unfazed, meeting Trump's gaze with a calm intensity. He reached into his leather portfolio and slid a folder across the table. Its sleek design was the only hint of the meticulously prepared contents inside. Trump arched an eyebrow as he picked it up, his expression hovering between curiosity and dismissal. "So," Trump began, flipping the folder open with a casual air, "you're the genius everyone's been talking about." His voice dripped with sarcasm, the kind that could rattle even the most seasoned negotiators. Alex tilted his head slightly, his tone light but deliberate. "I prefer business tycoon, but genius works too," he replied. The room erupted in quiet laughter, a ripple of amusement that made Trump's advisors exchange glances. They weren't sure if the kid was brave, foolish, or both. But Trump's smirk widened. "Tycoon, huh?" Trump said, leaning forward slightly. "Big words for a little kid." Alex didn't miss a beat. "Big words for a big room," he said, gesturing to the opulent surroundings. The tension shifted. This wasn't just a child meeting a business legend, it was a clash of two formidable minds. What most of the people in the room didn't know was how deeply Alex's business had already disrupted Trump's empire. Hart Enterprises had developed a revolutionary logistics platform that was quietly siphoning clients away from larger, more established competitors, Trump's companies included. Initially, Trump's team had dismissed Alex's involvement in the deal. To them, he was just a figurehead, a young prodigy who'd gotten lucky. They assumed his success was a fluke, a novelty that would fade as soon as real-world pressures mounted. But they were wrong. Alex wasn't just involved in the deal, he was the deal. Every strategy, every negotiation, every tiny detail bore his fingerprints. He wasn't some child prodigy being coached from the sidelines. He was the one running the show. And now, he had brought his show directly to Trump Tower. Alex knew what he was walking into. This meeting wasn't just about business, it was about power. Trump's team had orchestrated it as a flex, a way to put Alex in his place and regain control of a situation they had underestimated. But Alex wasn't here to be put in his place. He was here to take over the room. As Trump schemed the contents of the folder, Alex watched him closely. The numbers were airtight, the projections flawless. The report didn't just highlight the success of Hart Enterprises, it revealed the weaknesses in Trump's current operations. Trump's smirk faded slightly as he reached a specific page. His advisors leaned in, their casual postures replaced by quiet tension. "You think you've got this figured out, don't you?" Trump said, closing the folder and placing it back on the table. "I know I do," Alex replied, his voice steady. "The question is, do you?" The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. This was no ordinary business meeting. Trump wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone a fraction of his age. Yet Alex's tone carried no arrogance, just a quiet confidence that was impossible to ignore. One of Trump's senior advisors, a man named Jeff, cleared his throat. "Mr. Hart," he said, his voice thick with condescension, "these numbers are impressive, but surely you understand the complexities of running a business at this level." Alex turned to Jeff, his gaze sharp. "Complexities like maintaining outdated systems that cost you millions in inefficiencies every quarter." The room fell silent. Jeff opened his mouth to respond, but Alex didn't give him the chance. "If you'd like, I can walk you through the specifics," he continued, pulling out another document. "Page 7 details exactly where those losses are coming from." Trump's smirk returned, but this time it carried a hint of respect. "You've got guts, kid," he said. Alex met his eyes. "Guts are easy. Strategy takes work." As the meeting progressed, Alex revealed more of his analysis. Each point was precise, each critique delivered with the kind of professionalism that made it hard to dismiss his age. Trump's advisors, once smug and dismissive, began shifting in their seats. The boy wasn't just holding his own, he was outmaneuvering them. At one point, Jeff leaned over to whisper to another advisor. "This kid is dangerous," he muttered. Trump, meanwhile, was beginning to enjoy himself. The usual meetings bored him, they were predictable, filled with sycophants eager to agree with everything he said. But Alex was different. He challenged Trump, pushed back, and refused to be intimidated. "You're a sharp one," Trump said, leaning back in his chair again. "But sharpness can cut both ways. You sure you're ready for the big leagues?" Alex's answer was immediate. "I'm not just ready, I'm already here." What Alex didn't say but Trump likely suspected was that the stakes were higher than anyone realized. Hart Enterprises wasn't just a small startup with a bright future. It was a direct threat to Trump's control over key markets. Behind the confident exchanges and playful banter, there was a battle unfolding. Alex's strategies were calculated to expose weaknesses in Trump's operations, and Trump's team knew it. But what they didn't know was how far Alex was willing to go to win. For Alex, this wasn't just business, it was personal. Months earlier, one of Trump's subsidiaries had attempted to strong-arm Hart Enterprises into an unfair deal. When Alex pushed back, they tried to cut him out entirely, assuming he wouldn't fight back. But Alex did fight back and he won. This meeting wasn't just about a business partnership. It was about proving that age didn't define capability, that intelligence and determination could outmatch even the most experienced players in the game. And as Trump's team realized the depth of Alex's strategy, the tension in the room thickened. Trump leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. His expression was unreadable, but his tone carried a subtle edge. "All right, kid," he said. "You've shown me your cards. Now, let me show you mine." Alex smiled faintly. "I've already seen them," he said. The room froze. Trump chuckled, but the sound was colder now. "Careful, Alex," he said. "This is a game you don't want to lose." Alex's gaze didn't waver. "With all due respect, Mr. Trump, I don't play games. I make moves." The room seemed to hold its breath as the standoff between Alex and Trump reached a boiling point. It was clear now that this wasn't just a meeting, it was a clash of two powerful minds, each determined to come out on top. And as the stakes continued to rise, one thing became certain: this was a battle no one in the room would ever forget. Trump adjusted his tie, his expression unreadable, though his sharp eyes betrayed a flicker of interest. It wasn't often he encountered someone who could hold their ground, let alone a 10-year-old. He tapped his fingers on the table, a rhythmic sound that echoed in the silent room. "All right, Alex," Trump said, leaning forward, his elbows resting on the polished table. "Let's cut the cute act. What's your angle here? You didn't come all this way just to impress me with some numbers." Alex folded his hands in front of him, his expression as calm as ever. "My angle, Mr. Trump," he said evenly, "is to ensure that we both benefit. Your team reached out to me for a reason. My software works. It's saving you money and improving your operations. I'm simply here to make sure that the value I bring to the table is recognized appropriately." Trump smirked, but there was no amusement in his eyes. "Appropriately," he echoed. Big word for someone who hasn't hit middle school yet. Alex didn't flinch. "Big word for someone running a global empire," he replied smoothly. A few stifled coughs echoed from Trump's advisors, but no one dared to laugh outright. Despite Alex's confidence, he was acutely aware of the dynamics in the room. He wasn't just facing Donald Trump, he was facing an entire system designed to underestimate him. The older executives saw his age as a weakness, his presence as a novelty. To them, he was a curiosity, not a competitor. But Alex understood something they didn't: perception could be a weapon. He had studied Trump's tactics, watched hours of footage, and read countless articles. Trump thrived on dominance, often using his personality to overshadow facts. But Alex wasn't here to play by those rules. He was here to rewrite them. Trump leaned back in his chair again, steepling his fingers as he looked at Alex. "You've got guts, kid. I'll give you that. But guts don't win deals. Experience does. You're swimming in the deep end now." Alex met his gaze without hesitation. "With all due respect, Mr. Trump," he said, "it's not about how deep the water is. It's about how well you swim." Jeff, Trump's senior advisor, decided it was time to intervene. Clearing his throat, he leaned forward. "Mr. Hart," he began, his voice oozing condescension, "while we appreciate your enthusiasm, I'm not sure you fully grasp the scale of what we're dealing with here. Trump Enterprises operates on a level far beyond what you're used to." Alex turned his attention to Jeff, his calm demeanor never wavering. "I'm well aware of the scale," he replied. "That's why I'm here. My software has already improved your supply chain efficiency by 23%. If anything, your team should be asking why you didn't implement these changes sooner." Jeff's face reddened, but he quickly masked it with a forced smile. "That's impressive, Alex, but..." Alex cut him off. "But nothing," he said firmly. "You brought me here because you recognize the value I bring. Let's not waste time pretending otherwise." Trump chuckled softly, his eyes narrowing as he studied Alex. The boy was good, too good. He wasn't just confident, he was calculated. "All right," Trump said, raising a hand to silence the room. "Let's get down to brass tacks. You've shown us what you can do, but let's see how you handle the real world. Business isn't just about numbers, it's about people. Relationships. Leverage." Alex nodded. "I agree," he said. "And that's exactly why I'm here. Relationships are built on mutual respect. Leverage comes from value. I've provided both. Now it's your turn." Trump raised an eyebrow. "My turn?" "Yes," Alex said. "You brought me here to negotiate, didn't you?" The room fell silent again, the tension so thick it was almost tangible. Unbeknownst to most of the people in the room, this meeting wasn't just about business, it was about control. Trump's team had reached out to Alex thinking they could integrate his technology on their terms, believing his age made him malleable. But Alex had outmaneuvered them, embedding terms in the contract that gave him more leverage than they had anticipated. Now, they were scrambling to regain control, and Trump himself had stepped in to tip the scales. "You've got a lot of confidence for someone so new to the game," Trump said, his tone a mix of admiration and challenge. "I'm not new to the game," Alex replied. "I just play it differently." Trump's lips curved into a small smile. He loved a good fight, and Alex was proving to be a worthy opponent. One of the younger advisors, a woman named Lisa, finally spoke up. "Mr. Trump," she said cautiously, "maybe we should consider the broader implications of this partnership. Hart Enterprises has already proven its value. Dismissing them outright could be short-sighted." Jeff shot her a glare, but Lisa held her ground. Trump glanced at her, then back at Alex. "What do you think, Alex?" he asked. "Is she right? Should I be worried about being short-sighted?" Alex's eyes gleamed. "I think," he said carefully, "that every decision has consequences. The question is whether you're prepared to face them." For the first time, there was a flicker of uncertainty in the room. Alex wasn't just holding his own, he was turning the tables. Jeff leaned forward again, desperation creeping into his voice. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," he said. "This is a learning opportunity for all parties involved." Alex turned to him, his expression calm but unyielding. "It's not a learning opportunity for me," he said. "I already know what I'm doing." Trump barked out a laugh, the sound breaking the tension. "You've got a lot of nerve, kid," he said. "But let me tell you something, nerve only gets you so far." "True," Alex agreed. "But strategy gets you the rest of the way." Trump leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table as he stared directly at Alex. "All right, kid," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "You think you've got what it takes? Prove it." Alex didn't hesitate. "What would you like me to prove?" Trump gestured to the folder on the table. "These numbers are impressive, but numbers can be manipulated. I want to see how you handle pressure. How you adapt. Let's see if you've got the instincts for this business." Alex smiled faintly. "Pressure doesn't bother me, Mr. Trump," he said. "But if you want a test, let's make it fair." Trump's eyebrows lifted. "Fair?" "Yes," Alex said. "Let's negotiate. Right here, right now. If I win, you'll agree to my terms. If you win, I'll walk away." The room erupted in murmurs. This was bold even for Alex. Trump's smirk returned, wider than before. "You've got a deal, kid," he said. And just like that, the real battle began. Trump leaned back in his chair, his brows furrowing slightly as he studied the boy across the table. He wasn't used to being caught off guard, and Alex had just done the unthinkable. The blueprint on the table wasn't just any project. It was a meticulously crafted plan, one that mirrored Trump's vision but improved upon it in ways that no one in the room had anticipated. Alex's ability to foresee and address potential pitfalls in Trump's strategy was nothing short of remarkable. "Let me guess," Trump said, his voice laced with curiosity and a touch of irritation. "You've been spying on my team." Alex smirked faintly. "No need for that," he said. "Your plans are good, Mr. Trump, but they're predictable. Anyone paying attention could see where you were heading. I just got there first." The room went silent again, save for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Trump's advisors, who had spent years perfecting the art of flattery, suddenly seemed unsure of themselves. Jeff, still red-faced from earlier, leaned forward and pointed at the blueprint. "This is absurd," he blustered. "There's no way a kid could put this together on his own." Alex turned to him with a cool, measured gaze. "I didn't say I did it alone," he admitted. "But I did lead the team that created it. Innovation isn't about doing everything yourself, it's about knowing who to work with and how to inspire them." Trump tilted his head slightly, intrigued. "So, you're saying you're not just a boy genius, you're a leader too?" "Leadership isn't about age," Alex replied. "It's about vision and execution. Two things I'm pretty good at." Trump's lips twitched into a half-smile. He recognized the confidence, he lived by it. But there was something else here, something he hadn't expected. Alex wasn't just confident, he was prepared. "All right," Trump said, tapping a finger on the table. "Let's talk numbers. You've got ideas, but ideas don't pay the bills. Show me the money." Without missing a beat, Alex reached into his folder and pulled out another sheet of paper. It was a financial projection, a detailed, well-researched analysis of how his project could not only generate profit but also outpace Trump's current venture by a significant margin. The advisors craned their necks to get a better look, murmuring among themselves as they scanned the data. "Impressive," Lisa finally said, her tone cautious but genuine. Trump waved her off. "Impressive isn't enough," he said, his eyes still fixed on Alex. "What's the catch?" "There's no catch," Alex replied calmly. "Just good strategy. Your team has been focused on expansion, but you've overlooked efficiency. My blueprint solves that problem. By optimizing your operations, You'll save millions money you can reinvest into growth. Trump's fingers tapped faster against the table as he processed Alex's words. He glanced at Jeff, who was visibly sweating now. Is he right? Trump asked bluntly. Jeff hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. The numbers, they check out, he admitted. Trump's gaze snapped back to Alex, and for the first time, there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Let's cut to the chase, Trump said. You said earlier you had help. Who's backing you? No way you're doing all of this without some serious connections. Alex hesitated for a fraction of a second, a pause so brief that most of the room missed it. But Trump didn't. I don't need backing, Alex said carefully. I built my company on results, not connections. Trump raised an eyebrow. That's a nice line, but I'm not buying it. Someone taught you the ropes. Who was it? Alex leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping just enough to make everyone else lean in too. Let's just say I had a mentor who knows your playbook inside and out. The tension in the room skyrocketed. Trump's expression hardened, his mind racing through possibilities. As the meeting wore on, the balance of power continued to shift. Alex's calm, calculated responses were dismantling the skepticism that had filled the room at the start. Even Trump, with all his bravado, was finding it harder to dismiss the boy as just a precocious kid. But Trump wasn't about to back down. You've made your point, Trump said, his tone sharper now. You're smart, you've done your homework, and you've got guts. But guts don't close deals. What makes you think you can handle this level of competition? Alex met his gaze, unflinching. Because I don't see competition as a threat, he said. I see it as an opportunity. And right now, you have an opportunity to partner with someone who can take your business to the next level. Trump stared at Alex for a long moment, the room holding its collective breath. Finally, he leaned back and crossed his arms. You talk a big game, kid, he said. But talk is cheap. What's your next move? Alex's response was immediate. I'm offering you a deal. Partner with me on this project, and we'll split the profits 60-40. The advisors gasped audibly, their whispers breaking the silence. 60-40. Jeff sputtered. That's outrageous. Alex turned to him with a faint smile. Outrageous would be asking for 70-30, he said. But I'm being generous because I believe in building partnerships, not enemies. The offer hung in the air, electrifying the atmosphere. Trump's advisors were visibly shaken, their carefully constructed facades beginning to crack under the pressure. Lisa was the first to speak up again. Mr. Trump, she said hesitantly, this might actually be worth considering. The numbers don't lie, and the potential here is huge. Jeff shot her another glare, but Lisa didn't back down. Trump, meanwhile, was watching Alex with renewed interest. He had underestimated the boy at the start, and now he was paying the price. But Alex wasn't done yet. He had one final card to play, one that would tip the scales entirely in his favor. He reached into his folder one last time and pulled out a document, sliding it across the table to Trump. What's this? Trump asked, picking it up. Proof, Alex said simply. Of how much value I've already added to your company without you even realizing it. Trump's eyes scanned the document, his expression shifting from skepticism to astonishment. How did you get this? He demanded, his voice tinged with both anger and admiration. Alex leaned back, his demeanor calm and composed. Like I said earlier, he replied, I do my research. The room fell silent as Trump's gaze remained fixed on the document. It was a detailed analysis of how Alex's software had already streamlined several operational inefficiencies within Trump Enterprises. The document highlighted millions in potential savings, yet somehow, no one in the room had noticed until now. This can't be accurate, Jeff stammered, leaning over Trump's shoulder to get a better look. "It is," Alex replied matter-of-factly. "Your own team implemented my software without realizing its full capabilities. They've been sitting on gold and didn't even know it." Trump's eyes narrowed, the lines on his face deepening as he processed this new information. "Are you telling me," he said slowly, "that my team has been using your software without understanding its value?" Alex tilted his head slightly, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Not just your team," he said. "You." The ripple effect of Alex's revelation was immediate. Trump's advisors, who had been skeptical and dismissive at the start of the meeting, now found themselves scrambling to reassess the situation. Lisa, the most level-headed among them, finally broke the silence. "Mr. Trump," she began cautiously, "if this data is accurate, and it seems like it is, then Hart Enterprises has already proven its worth. Ignoring this could be detrimental." Jeff shot her a sharp look, but even he couldn't deny the mounting evidence. Trump leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. He was silent for a long moment, his piercing gaze fixed on Alex. Finally, he spoke. "You've been playing the long game, haven't you, kid?" he said, his voice low but tinged with grudging respect. Alex didn't hesitate. "The long game is the only game worth playing, Mr. Trump," he replied. Trump's smirk returned, though it was smaller this time, more thoughtful. "All right," he said. "You've got my attention. But let's see if you can handle the heat. What happens if I say no to your deal? What's your next move then?" Alex leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. "If you say no," he said evenly, "I'll take this blueprint to your biggest competitor. And believe me, they'll listen." The room erupted in murmurs, the tension reaching a boiling point. "You'd do that?" Trump challenged, his tone sharp. "Business isn't personal," Alex replied, echoing a phrase Trump himself had famously used in countless interviews. "It's about results. And if you're not interested, someone else will be." Trump's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. They knew Alex wasn't bluffing. The boy had done his homework, built a solid foundation, and now, he was calling the shots. Jeff tried one last time to regain control. "Mr. Trump, this is ridiculous. We can't let a child dictate terms to us." But Trump silenced him with a raised hand. "Enough," he said, his voice firm. He turned back to Alex, his expression unreadable. "You've got guts, kid. And you've clearly done your research. But guts and research aren't enough. What makes you think you're ready to compete with someone like me?" Alex's gaze didn't waver. "Because I've already been competing with you," he said. "You just didn't notice." Trump arched an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Explain," he said. Alex reached into his folder again and pulled out another document. This one was a comparative analysis of market share data, showing how Hart Enterprises had slowly but steadily been eating into Trump's territories. "Your real estate division," Alex began. "We've developed predictive algorithms that identify undervalued properties before they hit the market." "Your hospitality sector?" "We've streamlined booking processes for smaller competitors, giving them an edge over larger chains like yours." Trump's advisors leaned in, their eyes wide as they scanned the data. How did we not see this?" Jeff muttered under his breath. Alex smiled faintly. "You weren't looking," he said simply. Trump tapped the edge of the paper, his expression thoughtful. "You've been busy," he said. "Always," Alex replied. Trump chuckled, though there was no humor in the sound. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Let me guess," Alex said. "You." Trump's smirk widened. "You're sharp, I'll give you that. But let me tell you something, kid, ambition is great, but it can only take you so far. You need allies. And right now, You don't have any in this room. Alex didn't flinch. I don't need allies, Mr. Trump, he said. I need results. And I've already got those. The air in the room was electric, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Trump was clearly impressed, but he wasn't ready to concede just yet. All right, he said. You've shown me what you can do. But talk is cheap. Let's see some action. Alex didn't hesitate. What kind of action? He asked. Trump leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with challenge. I want you to solve a problem for me. Right here, right now. Something my team hasn't been able to crack for months. If you can do that, I'll consider your deal. Alex's expression didn't change. What's the problem? Trump gestured to Lisa, who quickly pulled out a file and slid it across the table. Our newest project, she explained. A major development deal that's been stuck in negotiations. The other side won't budge, and we're losing time and money. Alex opened the file and scanned the contents, his brow furrowing in concentration. The room watched in silence, the tension mounting with each passing second. Finally, Alex looked up, his eyes bright with understanding. Your approach is all wrong, he said. Jeff bristled. Excuse me. You're focused on what you want, Alex continued, ignoring him. But you haven't considered what the other side needs. If you restructure the deal to include these terms, he pointed to a specific clause in the file. They'll agree. And you'll still come out ahead. Trump took the file from Alex and studied the page he had indicated. Slowly, a smile spread across his face. Well, I'll be damned, he said. The kid's right. The paper lay on the polished table like a bomb waiting to go off. Trump's fingers hovered over it, his brow furrowed as he scanned the text. The silence in the room was deafening, even the air seemed to pause. What is this? Trump asked, his voice sharp but steady, masking the curiosity swirling beneath. It's a contract you signed 10 years ago, Alex said calmly. Back when you were expanding into the tech market. Trump's advisors leaned in, their eyes darting between the paper and Alex. Jeff, still flustered from earlier, muttered under his breath, this has to be a bluff. It's no bluff, Alex replied, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. As Trump read further, the color in his face shifted from curiosity to something closer to shock. The contract, seemingly insignificant at the time of signing, granted exclusive licensing rights to a small, obscure company, one that Alex now owned. This can't be right, Trump said, though his voice wavered. It's right, Alex assured him. Your legal team overlooked the clause that allowed the license to be restructured. I acquired that company 2 years ago, and since then, I've been quietly building around this asset. It's the foundation of my entire enterprise. The room erupted in murmurs. Jeff grabbed the paper, squinting at the text, before slumping back into his chair. It's legit, he muttered. Trump's fingers drummed against the table as he absorbed the implications. So, you're telling me, he began, his voice measured, that I handed you the keys to this whole operation a decade ago. Alex nodded. In a way, yes. But to be fair, you weren't looking for those keys back then. You were focused on something else. I just saw the opportunity you missed. Trump's smirk returned, though it was tinged with a mix of irritation and admiration. You've got nerve, kid. I'll give you that. But Alex wasn't done. He reached into his folder once more and pulled out another document, sliding it toward Trump. And this, Alex said, is the current market valuation of that asset. You might want to sit down for this one. Trump's eyes widened as he scanned the figures. The value of the asset had multiplied exponentially, making it one of the most lucrative properties in Alex's portfolio. This is worth billions, Trump said, his voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded again. And it's all tied to that forgotten deal. A deal you now need, if you want to keep your latest project afloat. The weight of Alex's words hit the room like a tidal wave. Trump's advisors looked stunned, their disbelief mirrored in their wide eyes. "You've been planning this for years," Trump said, his voice filled with a mix of anger and reluctant respect. Alex met his gaze evenly. "Not planning positioning," he corrected. "It's not about making one big move. It's about making small, smart moves that add up over time. You taught me that, indirectly." Trump leaned back in his chair, studying Alex with renewed intensity. "You're playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers," he said. "Exactly," Alex replied. Trump wasn't ready to concede just yet. "All right," he said, his tone shifting. "You've got the upper hand for now, but leverage only works if the other side doesn't have a counter. What do you think I'll do next?" Alex smiled faintly. "I know what you'll do," he said. "You'll try to buy me out. It's what you always do when someone gets in your way. But here's the thing, I'm not selling." The declaration hung in the air like a thunderclap. "You're not selling?" Trump repeated, his voice rising. "No," Alex said firmly. "Because this isn't about the money. It's about proving that vision and determination can beat raw power." Trump's advisors exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to proceed. Jeff opened his mouth to speak, but Trump raised a hand, silencing him. "You've got guts, kid," Trump said finally. "I don't like being outplayed, but I can respect it when it happens." Alex's expression didn't waver. "This isn't about outplaying you," he said. "It's about showing that the next generation can lead in ways the old guard never imagined." Trump chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "You're full of big ideas," he said. "But big ideas don't close deals." "They do when the numbers back them up," Alex countered. Trump leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "All right," he said. "You've proven you're smart. You've proven you're bold. But why come here? What do you really want?" Alex's eyes locked onto Trump's, unblinking. "I want a partnership," he said. "With your resources and my innovation, we can create something that outlasts both of us." Trump studied Alex for a long moment, the room holding its collective breath. Finally, he extended a hand. "You've got a deal," he said. The room erupted in stunned whispers as Alex shook Trump's hand, sealing a partnership that no one had seen coming. As the meeting concluded, Alex gathered his papers and prepared to leave. Trump watched him go, a rare smile on his face. "You've got a future, kid," he said. Alex paused at the door, turning back with a confident grin. "The future is already here," he said. The deal wasn't yet signed, but the atmosphere in the room was already different. Alex had not only demonstrated his strategic acumen but also outmaneuvered Trump in a way no one, perhaps not even Alex himself, fully anticipated. Trump's advisors sat back, their earlier skepticism replaced by quiet awe. Lisa, always the pragmatist, broke the silence. "If we partner with Hart Enterprises, we're looking at a trajectory that none of our competitors can match," she said. Jeff, still unwilling to give in, crossed his arms. "And if we don't?" Alex turned to him, his youthful face belying the steel in his gaze. "If you don't, the market will force your hand. The assets you hold today are already at risk. I've made sure of that." Trump's smirk returned, but it carried a note of respect. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" "Every move," Alex replied confidently. Trump leaned forward, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. "You've got talent, I'll give you that. But here's the thing about deals," his voice lowered, drawing everyone's attention. "There's always a price." "What's yours?" Alex didn't hesitate. "Equity," he said. "I want a seat at the table, not just a partnership." I want to be in the room when decisions are made. The statement hit like a lightning bolt. Jeff burst out laughing, but it was an uneasy, hollow sound. A seat at the table? You're a kid. Alex's eyes didn't waver. A kid who just brought a billion-dollar opportunity to this table, he said. Tell me, Jeff, how many of those have you brought in this quarter? The room went silent again, Jeff's face reddening as he sank back into his chair. You've got nerve, Trump said, his voice carrying a mix of amusement and curiosity. Most people who come to me know better than to ask for a piece of the pie. They're just happy to get a slice. Alex smiled faintly. Maybe that's the difference, he said. I'm not here to ask. I'm here to prove I've already earned it. Trump stared at him for a long moment, the wheels in his mind clearly turning. His advisors watched with bated breath, knowing that Trump's decision would set the course for the future. Finally, Trump leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. All right, he said. Let's test that theory. You want a seat at the table? Prove you can handle the heat. Solve a real problem for me, right now, and I'll consider it. Alex's gaze didn't waver. What's the problem? Trump gestured to Lisa, who slid a thick file across the table. This, she said. A development deal that's been stuck in limbo for months. Negotiations have stalled, and we're losing money every day it doesn't move forward. Alex opened the file and began flipping through the pages, his expression focused. The room watched in silence as he absorbed the details. After a few minutes, Alex looked up. You're approaching this from the wrong angle, he said. Jeff scoffed. And what would you know about it? Alex ignored him, addressing Trump directly. Your team is focused on what you want out of the deal, but you haven't considered what the other side needs. Their sticking point isn't about money, it's about control. Trump raised an eyebrow. Go on. Alex pointed to a specific clause in the contract. If you revise this section to include joint oversight on the project's implementation, they'll agree. It gives them a sense of security without costing you anything tangible. Lisa leaned forward, scanning the section Alex had highlighted. Her eyes widened. He's right, she said. This could actually work. Trump's smirk deepened. Interesting, he said. That's not all, Alex continued. The project itself has hidden inefficiencies that are eating into your margins. If you integrate my software into the development process, you'll increase productivity by at least 15%. Trump's advisors exchanged stunned glances. Jeff opened his mouth to argue but quickly closed it, realizing he had no counter. 15%. Trump repeated, his tone skeptical but intrigued. Minimum, Alex said confidently. Trump leaned back, a rare look of genuine consideration crossing his face. You've got a sharp mind, kid, he said. But sharp minds can be dangerous. How do I know you won't turn this around on me someday? Alex met his gaze steadily. Because this isn't just about business, he said. It's about legacy. I want to build something that lasts, and I think you do too. For the first time in the meeting, Trump looked truly thoughtful. He studied Alex as if seeing him for the first time not as a boy, but as a peer. Legacy, huh? Trump said finally. You've got guts, kid. I respect that. Alex extended a hand. Then let's make history together, he said. Trump hesitated for a moment, then clasped Alex's hand in a firm shake. The room erupted in applause, the tension that had defined the meeting finally breaking. As the meeting concluded, Alex gathered his papers and prepared to leave. Trump watched him go, his expression unreadable. Kid, Trump called out just as Alex reached the door. Alex turned, his expression calm and confident. Yes. You've got a future, Trump said, a rare note of sincerity in his voice. Alex smiled faintly. The future starts now, he said, walking out of the room with the poise of someone who had just secured a place at the top. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, and Alex Hart stood alone in the silent shaft, his reflection staring back at him in the polished walls. The weight of the meeting, the deal, and the incredible turn of events hadn't fully settled in yet. But as the elevator descended, something inside him clicked. It wasn't just about winning, he had changed the game, and the world was watching. Trump's empire, built on decades of power, wealth, and dominance, had just been shaken by a child. And while the walls of Trump Tower might not come crashing down immediately, the shift had begun. In the boardroom, Trump remained seated, his eyes locked on the door through which Alex had just exited. The room that had once felt like his kingdom now seemed different. Quiet. Disjointed. As his advisors shifted uneasily in their seats, Trump didn't speak immediately. He simply stared ahead, processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. "Well, that was something," Jeff muttered, breaking the silence. He had barely recovered from the shock of the meeting. But Trump didn't acknowledge him at first. Lisa, ever the voice of reason, was the next to speak. "This kid, he knows something that most people don't. His understanding of the market is advanced for someone his age. And his negotiation tactics? Brilliant." Trump slowly nodded, a slight grin tugging at the corners of his lips. "He's not wrong. I underestimated him. And you all did too. You should have seen it coming." The days that followed were a whirlwind. News outlets were buzzing with the story of Alex Hart, the 10-year-old business prodigy who had managed to outmaneuver Donald Trump himself. Headlines flashed across TV screens and social media, each one more incredulous than the last: "The boy who beat Trump, 10-year-old outsmarts business tycoon," and "Trump vs. Child, the epic showdown." Alex became a household name almost overnight, his name synonymous with a new breed of entrepreneur, one who wasn't confined by age or expectations. His story wasn't just about business acumen, it was about breaking barriers, about defying the odds and proving that the future didn't belong to the old guard. It belonged to the ones who could think differently. For Trump, the aftermath was not as clear-cut. His empire, though still strong, had sustained a blow to its image. No longer was he the unchallenged giant in the room. Alex Hart had exposed a vulnerability, a reminder that even the biggest names could be taken down by something as unpredictable as a child's ambition. In the following weeks, Trump's meetings had a different tone. His staff began to talk more cautiously, his competitors seemed bolder, and the deals he once took for granted were now under greater scrutiny. But, as he always did, Trump didn't let the pressure show. He doubled down, taking on new projects and reasserting his dominance in the public eye. But deep down, he knew Alex had won, and that fact would never leave him. For Alex, however, the days following the meeting were not about basking in victory. He knew that the real work had only just begun. His team at Hart Enterprises had been working tirelessly in the background, and now, with Trump's endorsement of their new project, they were set to take the business world by storm. Alex didn't rest on his laurels. He was determined to turn his victory into something lasting. The partnership with Trump, though unexpected, gave him access to resources and platforms that were previously out of reach. But instead of rushing into every opportunity that came his way, Alex took a measured approach. He knew that growth wasn't just about taking over, it was about building something sustainable. What Alex had done was not just challenge Trump. He had challenged an entire system, a network of powerful people who had spent decades reinforcing their dominance. And suddenly, that system didn't seem so invincible anymore. Investors, tech giants, and industry leaders who had previously dismissed Alex began reaching out to him. They were intrigued by his brilliance, his foresight, and his ability to navigate a world they thought they controlled. Alex was no longer just a boy prodigy, he had become a force to be reckoned with. Behind closed doors, some of Trump's closest allies began to question whether they had made the right decision in supporting him for so long. There were whispers about the future, about shifting alliances, and about what might happen if the old guard didn't adapt to the changing world. Alex didn't have all the answers. But he knew one thing for certain: he was ready to lead, ready to show that the future wasn't about sticking to the old ways. It was about embracing the new. As Alex prepared for the launch of his latest project, an innovative tech solution that combined artificial intelligence and sustainable energy, he was faced with one final challenge. Trump, though silent on the outside, wasn't done yet. He called for a private meeting, his office brimming with his usual air of authority. "Alex," Trump began, his tone guarded, "I've been watching your progress. You've done well. But there's something I need to ask you." Alex met his gaze without flinching. "What's that?" Trump hesitated for a moment. "Why partner with me at all? You've got everything you need to succeed on your own." Alex's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't a smile of mockery. It was a smile of understanding. "Because, Mr. Trump," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I know that even the biggest empires need new blood. You taught me that. But what you forgot is that your empire isn't eternal." Trump chuckled, a low, knowing sound. "You've got a way with words, kid. I'll give you that." "I'm not a kid anymore," Alex replied. "I'm the future." And with that, the deal between them was finalized, not just as a business transaction, but as a recognition that both had a part to play in the new world being built. Trump had the resources, Alex had the vision. Together, they could create something that neither could achieve alone. In the end, justice was not about retribution. It wasn't about Alex taking down Trump or proving that he was smarter, faster, or better. Justice was about balance. It was about proving that even the most powerful could be shaken, that the old guard had to adapt or face irrelevance. As the months passed, Trump and Alex's partnership began to yield results. The tech industry took notice. New projects were launched, new ideas were explored, and both men learned something from each other. Trump, though proud of his legacy, acknowledged that Alex had pushed him to think beyond his usual confines. And Alex, though still growing, came to realize that a successful empire wasn't just about having the right ideas, it was about having the right people by your side. The story of Alex Hart and Donald Trump would be remembered not as a tale of conflict, but as a story of transformation. A young prodigy, underestimated by the world, proved that anything was possible when you believed in your vision. And a seasoned business mogul, who thought he had seen it all, realized that sometimes, the future isn't something you can control, it's something you have to embrace. As the sun set over New York, the skyline that had once seemed so unshakable now felt different, more dynamic. It wasn't just Trump Tower that reached toward the sky. It was Alex Hart, a boy who had changed the rules and in doing so, changed everything. The world was now his to shape. Just write this section, but minimum 9,000 characters, and must use simple English vocabulary. Reflective or inspiring closing. Alex's story became legend, a tale of resilience and brilliance that inspired millions. It wasn't just about business or success, it was about the power of daring to challenge giants. Sometimes, Alex would later say, it's not the size of your opponent but the size of your vision that determines who wins. Alex Hart's story became more than just a business victory, it became a symbol of what could happen when you believed in yourself and refused to be limited by the world's expectations. People across the globe found inspiration in his journey. It wasn't just about being smart or being a child prodigy, it was about having the courage to stand up to the biggest forces in the world and refuse to back down. Everywhere he went, people talked about how a 10-year-old had managed to turn the tables on one of the most powerful men in the world. There was awe in their voices, but also hope. Alex had shown them that no matter how small you were, no matter how young or inexperienced, you could still challenge the giants of the world. What stood out most about Alex wasn't his age or his intellect, it was his resilience. He faced so many who underestimated him. They looked at him and saw only a child, but Alex knew better. He knew that the real power didn't lie in age or appearances, it lay in the strength of his ideas, the clarity of his vision, and the depth of his determination. Throughout his journey, Alex encountered plenty of challenges. There were times when the world seemed to laugh at him, when adults told him to wait your turn, when people doubted his ability to achieve anything. But Alex didn't listen to the doubters. He wasn't afraid to fail, and he wasn't afraid to learn. Every setback, every bit of criticism, only made him stronger. That's what made his success so special. It wasn't handed to him, he fought for it. He had to work harder than anyone could have imagined. And when it seemed like no one was taking him seriously, Alex kept pushing forward. Because he knew one thing, the world might not respect you at first, but if you keep going, if you keep proving your worth, they'll have no choice but to take notice. Alex didn't just want to win against Trump. He didn't even care about proving he was smarter than anyone else. What Alex wanted was to change the rules. He wanted to show that success wasn't about age, gender, or where you came from. It was about your vision. It was about how big you could dream and how hard you were willing to fight for those dreams. Trump, for all his power and experience, had underestimated Alex. And in the end, that's what gave Alex the upper hand. His vision was bigger, his strategy more innovative, and his drive unmatched. But most importantly, he wasn't afraid to be different. While Trump followed the old ways of doing business, Alex was unafraid to challenge them. He was willing to step into uncharted territory, where no one else dared to go. And that's the key to success in any field: being willing to take risks, to be bold enough to fail and try again, and to believe in the value of your ideas, even when no one else does. Alex's story taught the world that it's not about fitting in, it's about standing out, pushing boundaries, and looking for opportunities where others only see obstacles. As time went on, Alex became more than just a business mogul. He became a mentor, a figure of inspiration for the next generation. Young entrepreneurs, innovators, and dreamers looked up to him, seeing him as proof that anything was possible. He became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that greatness wasn't limited to those born with a silver spoon in their mouth, or to those with years of experience behind them. Success isn't just for the people who have been around the longest, Alex would often say. It's for the people who are willing to fight for it, the people who believe in something bigger than themselves. It's for the ones who can see a future that doesn't exist yet and are willing to build it with their own hands. Those words resonated with so many. They weren't just words, they were a call to action. Alex's heart was living proof that anyone, no matter how young or how old, could step into the world with a vision and make it a reality. And the ripple effect of his story spread far beyond just business. It inspired artists, activists, engineers, and thinkers of all kinds. The true measure of success. In the years that followed, Alex's empire continued to grow. His companies, fueled by innovation and a relentless pursuit of excellence, became leaders in industries like technology, energy, and environmental sustainability. But even as he achieved success, Alex never lost sight of what truly mattered. For him, success was never about money or fame. It was about making a difference. It was about challenging the status quo, questioning old systems, and offering new ways of thinking. Alex didn't just want to build a legacy, he wanted to change the world. And he did. People who once believed that success was about following the path laid out before them began to realize that the true key to success was carving your own path, even if that meant going against the grain. Alex's life was a testament to the fact that no dream is too big, no challenge is too tough, and no person is too small to make a difference. Alex's story wasn't about defeating one man. It was about showing the world that the greatest power comes from within. It's about being fearless in the pursuit of your dreams and having the strength to turn those dreams into reality, even when the odds are stacked against you. He proved that, in business and in life, it's not the size of the opponent that matters. It's the size of your vision that determines who will come out on top. As Alex often said, it's not about being the biggest or the most powerful. It's about seeing the world differently, thinking bigger, and having the courage to take that first step. If there's one thing Alex's journey teaches us, it's this: don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Don't let your age, your background, or the circumstances of your life limit you. If you have a vision, a dream, and the determination to work for it, nothing can stop you. The world is full of giants, people, companies, and systems that seem impossible to challenge. But Alex Hart showed us that giants can be taken down, not with force, but with brilliance, resilience, and a clear vision of the future. So, the next time you face a challenge, remember this: it's not about how big your opponent is, but how big your vision can be. And if you dare to dream bigger than anyone ever thought possible, you just might be the one to change the world. As Alex stood in front of the next big opportunity, with his heart full of ideas and his mind sharp with purpose, he remembered what he'd learned along the way: it's not the obstacles that define us. It's the courage we find to face them head on. And when we choose to believe in ourselves, to dream big, and to act with purpose, we can move mountains just like a boy who had the guts to take on a giant and win. The future was waiting, and Alex Hart was ready to shape it.